All right, guys, what is up? I'm coming back at you from another year, 2018. Woo, exciting. So in this video, we are going to learn how to use JWTs, otherwise known as JavaScript Web Tokens, to authenticate through NodeJS and Express. So JWTs are pretty cool. They're completely stateless, meaning that there's no state to them. So basically, this middleware will create a token and you'll give it to your front end. So you'll give it to your front end will send it back with every single request. And there's nothing stored. So you don't store it anywhere like in your database. It's not session managed. It's nothing. It's just a token that is either valid or invalid for a specific user. So user A will have a token of ABCD. And if it's any different than that, it doesn't work. But they can have different tokens. It's pretty cool. It'll make a little more sense when we get into it. So let's go ahead and get into it. So first, we're going to create a new JavaScript file, and we're going to call this index.js. And we're going to start installing dependencies, as you usually have to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to do npm install --save, and we're going to do Express and NodeMon first. So we're going to need more as we go, but I'm going to kind of do them as we need them as opposed to all at once. So we've got them all installed, and we have a node modules and a package lock. So one issue that we don't have is we're going to do npm init, actually. And I'm just going to not care about any of those. And then we're going to need to rerun the install because those need to be saved in your package.json. So I know it's kind of fast. It's fine. All you need to do is run npm init and then npm install --save those two packages, which is Express and NodeMon. So now that we've got those out of the way, we should have a package.json, a package lock, and an index and some node modules. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is set up our server to be able to run. So we're going to do import express from, or not from, sorry, is equal to require express. And now you're going to see, not import, wow, too much ES6. So you can see that I've got an interesting require issue. I'm going to fix that very quickly. Cool. So we're going to do express or const serve is equal to new express. So express or serve dot listen. So we're going to want a const port is equal to 3000 or so our port is going to be 3000. So what we're saying is we are going to have a port. Now, if our environment has a process or an environment variable of port, we're going to use that. Otherwise, we're going to use 3000. That's for deploying it to places. As in, if we do things like deploy it to Heroku, it'll do cool things, it'll pull that off of it itself. So instead of calling this serve, I'm actually going to call this app. I think that's a better. I feel like that's a better word for it as opposed to serve. So we're going to listen on ports, and we're going to start off with an app.get / we're going to have a request, a result, and we have got some JavaScript issues again. As you can see, there it is. No. So all we've done here, .send, and we're just going to send hello world. Hello word. All right. So what have we done here? We have said we've created a new Express object. We've required Express. We've created a new application. Our home, so it's going to be localhost :3000 / and that's it. We'll send hello world, and we're going to listen on port 3000 unless our environment variable has it, which ours doesn't. So we're just going to listen on port 3000. So next up, we're going to have to set up our package.json to run this. So on our scripts, we're going to add a new script, and we're going to call it dev, and we're just going to do NodeMon index.js. And then we should be able to run npm run dev, and it's watching it's watching index.js. So we are going to do localhost 3000, and when we pull that up, there it is, hello world. So now that we've got the simplistics out of the way, what we're going to do next is install 3 new packages. So I'm just going to open up a new tab in my iTerm, because that's going to allow the server to just keep running in the background. So I'm going to cd into the directory I'm in, and then we're going to clear. And what we're going to need to install, we're going to npm install --save. So there's going to be quite a few. We're going to do passport -JWT, JSON web token, and .env. So that's a lot of packages. I'll kind of run over what they do. So passport is going to allow us to kind of do the authentication. It is a middleware that kind of packages all this in for you. Passport JWT is the strategy that will tell Passport what to do. So Passport's just like, hey, I now support authentication, and that's all it does. So Passport JWT will say, okay, I'm going to do JavaScript web token style of authentication. There's different styles. You can look them up. Some of them are pretty cool. So JSON web token is the actual, thing that you're using. And .env will allow us to use environment variables with a .env file. So the reason I like .env is because you never have to store things that are sensitive. So if I wanted to store like a database password, I can use .env, and I can just create a .env file, because those kinds of things are usually done through environment variables. So what this will allow us to put it on our local machine, and it won't go up to the server as long as you don't include in your git ignore a .env. So if you're using Git, make sure to use or exclude your .env file. So with that, we're just going to touch .env. You can create it in your thing here if that's what you want to do. So first up, we're going to want to listen for our .env. So .env is very simple. We're just going to do const .env is equal to require .env. Nothing too fancy about that. And then we're going to call .env.config. And we're going to want these two to be the very first thing. So .env should be the first thing you ever do. That way it loads your .env file initially, and that's just the way it should be. You should always load your .env file initially if you're using this library. Because you could do something down here that needs something from your .env file, and it won't know because you haven't loaded it quite yet. So after we have that out of the way, we're going to do all of our stuff in one file to keep this as simple as possible. So what we're first going to do is we're going to need to open up our .env file. And you're going to need to create a variable and a string. So this string is going to be used to authenticate who is signing the token. So we want to make sure to send a valid token to them, and we need to make sure that we're the ones who send it. So we're going to sign it with our secret. So we are going to import passport, or all that ES6. We're going to do const passport is equal to, I'm in the .env file, I'm silly. So I'm going to call this secret or key, and I'm just going to make mine some gibberish. It doesn't really matter what you make it. You should make it something, and it should be relatively long, but this is kind of a dev environment, so it's kind of irrelevant. So now that we have that, we are going to do const passport is equal to require passport. And then we're going to say const passport JWT is equal to require, you guessed it, passport JWT. And then we're going to have two more variables called const JWT strategy is equal to passport JWT dot strategy. And we're going to have an extract JWT is equal to passport JWT dot extract JWT. So these are just used in the middleware to deal with stuff. It's not too terribly difficult. So we're going to say const ops. Now these ops are basically options. And they're nothing special. It's just going to be JWT from request. And it's going to be extract JWT. And that's going to be dot from auth header as bearer token. Now, you might have seen some old ones that don't use from auth header as bearer token. Those have been deprecated, and this is the way you're supposed to do it now. It's sad, but that's the way of deprecation, right? And then we're going to have a secret or key. And what this is going to be, it's going to be process.env.secret or key. Now, that bears some resemblance to our .env, right? So it's going to take our .env file and say, hey, this is our secret or key. Pretty simple, pretty cool. And then we're going to say const strategy is equal to new JWT strategy. And it's going to take in our options, so ops. And then we're going to have a payload and a next. And what we're going to do here is we would get our user. So for now, we're not going to be getting anything. So we're going to say our const user is equal to null. And I'm just going to do a to-do here, and we're going to say get user from DB. And then we're just going to call next with a null, and we're going to call it on user. So what this will do, now it's not super useful yet, obviously, we don't really understand it quite yet, but it's going to get our user and then put our user in our request. It's going to have a request.user, which is really useful because that'll have our user with us. And then it'll just call next and it'll keep going down the line. So we're going to do passport.use strategy. And now that we have passport.use strategy, we're going to actually want to use passport. So we're going to want to do app.use passport.initialize. Initialize. I'm just making sure I spelled this right. All right, cool. So we're going to check and make sure that we don't have any errors. We don't have any JavaScript error, or we don't have any syntax errors, and our hello world is still pulling up. So that's pretty cool. So basically what we've done so far is we set up the strategy to say, whenever I get a web token, this is how I'm going to get the user. So first up, we're going to want to set up a database. So I'm going to use Knex and another library called another library called Bookshelf. So Bookshelf is just built on top of Knex, and it's just a simple ORM. I'm a big fan of it because it has something called Bookshelf Secure Password, which will allow us to store passwords. You should never store passwords in plain text, and we're not going to do that here. So first up, we're going to install, so again, we're here, we're going to do npm install --save. We're going to install bcrypt. That's going to be to encrypt our passwords. We're going to install Knex, and we're going to install, what else? Bookshelf. And then we're going to install something else called Bookshelf Secure Password. And I believe that is it. And PG, because that's going to let me connect to Postgres. And if I haven't said it before, I'm going to use Postgres, as that will allow me to connect to a Postgres database, and that's what I'm going to use here. You can't use Bookshelf with document storage databases such as Mongo, but you can use Mongoose for that if you'd like. So we've installed our packages, which is Postgres, Knex, bcrypt, Bookshelf, and Bookshelf Secure Password. So first up is going to be, we're going to use Knex. And if you want to use Knex just from the command line, so I've got this thing, I can just run Knex. You can do npm install -g Knex, and it will install Knex globally, so you can just run the command Knex. But anything you see me do here can also be done with .node modules, Knex, and bin, and CLI.js. So I'm just using the CLI. If you want to install it globally, you can install it globally, or you can just run .node modules. So we're going to clear up that, and we're going to just do Knex init. And you can see that creates a Knex file. So we're going to open up our Knex file and see what it looks like. So We have development, staging, and production. We don't have staging, and we don't really have production right now. So we're not going to worry about those. But we do have development. So our client is going to be PG. And we're not going to have a connection of file name. We're just going to have a connection string. It's going to be simple. It's just going to be Postgres : localhost /LM or JWT test. So nothing special about this. It's just a connection string for Knex to understand what database we're connecting to. Now, if you haven't installed Postgres before, you should do that now. If you're on Mac, use Homebrew. If you're not, install it wherever the way you can. But I'm just going to use pSQL. Oh, could not connect to server. So I had some issues with my Postgres. Sorry about that. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into pSQL. And we're going to create a DB. And what do we call it? We called it JWT test. So we're going to create DB JWT _ test. Oh, sorry. Create database JWT test. So what you can do is you can use create DB from the command line, or you can use create database from the Postgres command line, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, just hit PSQL and then go to create database JWT test. So we have successfully created a database for JWT test. And next up, what we're going to want is we're going to want to create our tables. Now, one thing that I like to do is I like Knex for migrations. So I'm going to do Knex migrate, and we're going to do make, and we're just going to do create user table. Now, no local Knex installation found in. Oh, I'm in the wrong folder. We should do that here. So I'm going to run that same query or command Knex migrate make create user table. So what this will do, what migrations will do, it'll say, hey, we've added these things, and I just want you to run them on the database, which will be pretty cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to cd into migrations, and you can see here we have a new file. We can look at that here as well. It'll be a little bit bigger for you guys. So we have an exports up and an exports down. So one thing that this is we have an up and a down. So the up is going to say, to build this migration, what do we need to do? And for down is going to say, to destroy this migration, what do we need to do? So if we create a new table, we're just going to drop the new table. If we create a column, we're going to drop the column. It's pretty cool stuff like that. It's pretty powerful. I'm a big fan of Knex migrations. They are very, very cool, and I really enjoy them. So what we're going to do is we're going to do return Knex.schema.create table. So what we're doing is we're creating a table. Now, you might want to use the user word here. I highly advise against that because Postgres itself has a user reserved keyword. So I like to use login user. And then we're going to return a function. So we're just going to do t. And we're going to say t. So this t is the table. So we've created a new table. And this t is the table that we've created. So we want to add a column of increments. And we're going to call it ID. It will be unsigned, which means that it's just going to be able to be bigger, and it's going to be our primary key. And we're going to do t.string, and it's going to be an email, and it cannot be null. And we're going to do a t-string. Now, this one might be a little weird. It's going to be a password _ digest. Now, I'll show you why in a minute. And it's not null. And that's all we need to do. So what we've done is whenever we run this schema create, it is going to create this table with an ID, an email, and a password digest. Next up, we're going to say return Knex.schema. Oh, not scheduling policy. Schema. .drop table login user. So if we want to kill this migration, something went horribly wrong, and we need to fix our data or we need to fix something, we'll just migrate backwards, and everything will be good to go. So what we can do now is we can do Knex migrate latest. So what this has done is it has run the migration. So before, we didn't have any tables in our database. But now if we do pSQL and we do connect to JWT test, and we do select, or we do just DT. We have a Knex migrations, we have a Knex migrations lock, and we have a login user. Really, really cool. So this login user, obviously, if we do select star from login user, we've got an ID, an email, and a password digest. Oh, that is really, really powerful. So now that we've got our table, we are going to want to create a model for our table. And for that model, what we're going to do is something pretty simple. We're going to keep it all in the index file. So we're going to say, well, first we're going to have to actually set up our database. We haven't completely set it up yet. We're pretty close, though. So we have a Knex and a bookshelf. So we're going to want to set up a Knex and a bookshelf, right? So for some cleaner lines, we're going to do import, or not import, again, sorry. Const Knex is equal to require Knex. And then we're going to say const db, or Knex db, is equal to Knex, open up an object, do a client, is PG, and the connection is going to be the same connection string we had earlier. It's Postgres : / localhost, and it is, what do we name it? JWT something? JWT test. JWT _ test. Now, you're probably confused as to why we just did this a second time. So the Knex file, I believe, is just for migrations, and the Knex DB connection we're here is actually what we're using in our application. So whenever you run migrations, Knex will scan for a Knex file and say, this is the one you want me to run migrations on. This Knex DB is actually making our connection in our server itself. So now that we have that, we are going to do const bookshelf is equal to require bookshelf. Again, I'm not using best coding practice by putting everything in one file, but we're not doing anything super complicated here, so it's not that big of a deal. So, and then we're going to import, we are going to import it, but we're going to import it with a require statement. Secure password from bookshelf secure password. And then we're going to do const bsdb is equal to bookshelf. Actually, we're just going to call it bookshelf. Or BS or DB. How about we just call it DB? Woo. All right, we've now called it DB, and we're going to call is equal to bookshelf with Knex in it. So Knex DB, we've created our Knex DB, and bookshelf wants it. And then we're going to say db.plugin is going to be secure password. So what we've done is we've set up a plugin for secure password, or for our DB with secure password, and it's just going to work. What it's going to do is it's going to take in anything we send in the password, and it's just going to auto encrypt it for us. So that way we don't have to deal with encrypting our password ourselves in our model. We're just going to say, hey, here's the password they gave us, encrypt it. And it'll store it in the database, and then you can authenticate, and then it'll give you the user. And if the password's wrong, it returns a bad, or it throws an exception, which is really nice for us because then we can just return a status code and tell them that the password's wrong. So what we've done is we've created our bookshelf, and we've created our plugin with secure password. Next up, we want to create our simple model. Now, we're going to say const user is equal to db.model.extend, and we're going to have a table name. And the table name is the table name that we created, which is login user. And we're going to say has secure password is true, and that's it. So what we've done is we've created a user model that has a secure password. So this is used from our plugin that we have. So this is going to put a password digest on it. So the reason we use password instead of password digest is because that's just what secure password wants by default. If you wanted to do password, you could probably do something like, I think password would do it. So whatever you name this field is the field that it puts the password into. I like to keep with the normal stuff, so it's just going to be password digest. And that's all we need for our model. Now, what we're going to do now is we're actually going to get our user whenever we do it. So we're going to say const user is equal to user.forge, and the ID is going to be the payload .id. Oh, I forgot my curly braces here, and I spelled ID wrong. So we have forge, get the ID, and then we're going to fetch it. And then we're going to do a .then, and we're going to say results. And we're going to want to move this up because it's in a promise. And we'll want to say, actually, we're going to want to delete that const user. And we're just going to want to send the results. So one thing that we don't want to do is send the password down to the user. So what you could do here is you could exclude the password. We're not going to worry about it here. But basically what we've done is we've gotten our user from the payload ID. So whenever we send down in the JWT, we send down the ID of the user that we are. So we can get that user with user.forge, and then we get the ID, and then we fetch it, and then we have the result, and then we're just going to pass that along. Pretty simple stuff. Let us check and make sure that we've got no syntax errors or anything. Oh, we want to run npm run dev. It doesn't look like we do. We still got our hello world, so that's pretty nice. So what we're actually going to want to do as well is we're going to want to create a user really quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our thing again, and then we're going to just make a app.post. So it's a seed user, and it's going to have a request and a result. Now, basically, we're going to use this so we can create a test user, and we don't have to do it ourselves. We don't have to encrypt everything ourselves, and we can make sure that our model is working and our middleware is working for our plugin for our model. So we're going to say if not request.body or .body.email or not request.body.password, we can just return res.status 400 or 401 .send no fields. So basically, if they don't send us what we need, send them back a bad one. Now, so we're going to say const user is equal to new user, and we're going to say the email is the email, and the password is the password that we've got. And these are going to be request.body.email and request.body.password. So basically, we're posting up whatever we need, and that's going to be our new user. So behind the scenes, what's going to happen here is when we save this user, our plugin that we have is going to automatically save the password into the password digest completely nice and encrypted. So that way we don't have to do it ourselves. So we're going to say new user, or just user.save.then. We don't really care what's in it. And we're going to just say res.send. Okay. So what we've done here is we've sent the we've created a user, and then we're just going to send OK. So we're going to open up Postman. That's what I like to use to make my requests. So now that we've made the ability to make the request, we're going to actually make the request and create a simple user for us. So I just want to create a basic request, hit cancel because I don't care. As you can see, I've been doing this myself. So we're going to do localhost :3000/ and then we named it, what did we name it? We named it seed user. Ooh. So we're going to want to post it. We don't need any headers. And our body is going to be, we're going to need an email, test@test.com. And then we're going to want a password, and our password can just be password. And we're going to try and send this. We got cannot read property, email of undefined. So we've got a cannot read property of undefined. We could actually look at that error here as well. So our request.body is undefined, I'm guessing. So I'm going to throw a console.log in here. I'm going to say console.log request.body. I'm so stupid. Wow. So to be able to post stuff up like this, we actually need a way to deal with it. I usually do. This is usually the first thing I ever do whenever I create a new Node/Express thing, but I forgot to do it. So we need to do npm install --save, and it is going to be called body parser. This lets us, parse the body. It's really nice, pretty useful, as you can tell. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to say const. Actually, we're going to want to put this up here. Yeah, why not up here? So const body parser is equal to require body parser. And then we're going to just use, we're going to put it under this. So we're going to say app.use body parser, or we could just call it a parser. Parser dot URL encoded. And we're going to say extended is equal to false. That doesn't really matter much for us. But then we're also going to use app.use body, or just parser .json. So basically all we've said is just use parser, and that should work just fine. So we have no syntax errors there. So let's try this again and see what happens. It's sent OK. So if we go to our Postgres and we just select star from login user, you can see that our password digest has been encrypted automatically. That is a useful plugin. Basically, all it's using is calling in bcrypt, and it's saying, hey, encrypt this. And then it just throws in the password digest column. I'm a big fan of this plugin. Why recreate the wheel? He's already created this for me. There's no real reason. As long as you kind of understand what's happening in the background, I think it's pretty irrelevant on the actual implementation. Saves you 30 minutes. That's 30 minutes you've got to do something else. But now that we have our user, we are going to want to send, or we're going to want to have a protected route. So to have a protected route, it's not going to be that difficult. We're just going to say app.get /protected. And then, of course, we're going to have our request and our result. And then we're going to want to actually format this. We'll put that down in the middle of the page more so. And then what we're going to want to do is we're just going to res.send I'm protected. Oh. I'm protected. So this is not going to protect it by itself. We need to actually include our middleware, right? So we're going to say passport.authenticate. And it's going to be JWT. The session is going to be false. And then we're going to have the request and the result. So we are going to load up this, and we're going to say protected. And as you can see, we got a 401 unauthorized. So that's pretty cool. So it's not sending down what we're expecting it to send down because we're unauthorized. So we're going to want to be able to get the token, right? So we're going to do app.get /get token. And to get this token, all you're going to want to do is have a request and a result, as everything should always have. Now, when getting the token, we have to log in, right? So we need to make sure that we have a user, and we need to make sure we need to make sure we have a user with the email, and then we need to authenticate their password, and then we can just send them down the token. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if not rec.body.email or not rec.body.password, res.send, and we're going to want to return that. Return res.status, and a decent status to send here is like 400 or 401 actually. 401 is probably better. And res.send bad password or no username. No, we'll say fields not sent. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get our user. So we're going to say user.forge email, and of course it's going to be request.body.email, and then .fetch, and then .then, and it's going to be our results. So if you don't really understand this forge syntax, basically we're using our model, and our model says, hey, we have a table name of login user. I want you to forge it, which means I want you to create a new query where the email is equal to the request.body.email. Then I want you to fetch it. Fetch just gets 1, so select top 1. And then we'll get the result. And the result should technically be our user. And we say if not result, return res.status. 400 is good for this. And then just say .send user not found. And then otherwise, what we're going to want to do is we're going to say result.authenticate. And we have request.body.password.then user. We're going to set const payload. As you might be able to see here, we're going to say the ID is this user.id. So remember earlier, what we did is we said the payload is going to have an ID on it, and we're going to forge it, and we're going to get the ID. So that's what we're doing here. We're creating the payload ourselves. So we're going to say const payload is equal to user ID.id, and we're going to say const token is equal to JWT. Now, what is this JWT? We haven't imported it yet, so we're going to say const JWT is equal to require JSON web token. So now that we've got that, so we'll say JWT. Ooh, sorry about that. So const token is equal to JWT.sign. And we're going to sign it with the payload. And we're going to get our process.env.secret or key. And then we're going to res.send the token. Now, one thing that we should do here is we should catch the error. And we should return res.status 401 and then .send error. Ooh, forgot my. So what we've done here is this is our middleware or our plugin. So this is our cool secure password thing, plugin that's very, very useful. And we just call authenticate and we give it the password, and it will say, is this password they've posted up the same as the password that we've stored with bcrypt? And if it is, send the user. Otherwise, throw an error, and we're catching that error, and then we're sending the status down. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we don't have any issues there. What did we call this route? We called it get token. So if we go to get token, obviously it's not going to work because field's not sent. So we're going to do postman, and then we're going to do get token. And our email is going to be test@test.com. It's going to be password. And we're going to do send. Cannot post get token. Oh, did I make it a get? Get's probably a decent thing to do. We'll do a post, actually. We'll make this a post. It's probably better to be a post. So that way the username and password aren't in the header. So if you do a post request, it's going to be sent in the body as opposed to in the URL. That's not a huge distinction, so don't worry about it. So we're going to do it again. We're stuck in loading, so that probably means that we have an error. Res.status is not a function. After much deliberation, I have decided, or I've found, that we have an issue here. I named this res, and it should not be res, because this is hiding this overarching res. So we're going to say this is result. We're going to say this is result, and this is res, and this is going to be results. And I believe that should fix our issue. Aha! So here it is. Here's our token. This is the token that we have that will allow us to authenticate to our our protected route. So we're going to take this token, we're going to put it in a header. It's going to be authorization. That's going to be the key. And we're going to have a bearer is going to be the first word. And then we're going to paste our token in as our second word. Now, the bearer basically just says, hey, I'm a JavaScript web token or JSON web token, and this is what I am. And then do a space and then paste in the token. That's just the syntax that this stuff expects it in. That's the syntax you got to give it. So lastly, we're going to go to app.get protected, and then we're going to send it. And it says, I'm protected. So that's the end of the video. That's the end of JSON web tokens. What we've learned is we've learned a little bit about Knex. We learned a little bit about Knex migrations. We learned a little bit about Bookshelf, how to make a query in Bookshelf. We learned a little bit how to use a plugin with Bookshelf and use secure password. We learned a lot about JavaScript web tokens. So these JSON web tokens basically just allow you to authorize or authenticate people. So one thing that JSON web tokens are good for is very simple and stateless, completely stateless authentication. So you don't have to store anything in your DB other than users and your passwords. There's no sessions. It's very powerful and pretty simple to set up. So that's the end of the video. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, let me know. If you have anything specific you want me to look at, I'm down to look at it. If you liked it, like and subscribe. If you didn't, tell me why. Be as brutally honest as you'd like. Doesn't hurt my feelings, except it does a whole lot. I've bumped up the text sizes of some of my stuff because people constantly complain. It only takes like 15 videos to get that in. So if you want your stuff figured out or you want your stuff implemented, just know you got to do it 15 videos early. So I'll see you guys next time, and it was great doing the video. Thanks.